Welcome back to the next chapter of the turbulent love story between CEO James and a strong, resilient girl named Diep. In the previous episode, after a long battle with a serious illness, Diep was finally discharged from the hospital and returned to her familiar home, a place filled with memories, both joyful and painful. It seemed like the storm had finally passed, that peace had smiled upon her after everything she had endured. But once again, life was ready to test her heart. Tung, the man who had silently watched over her for years, could no longer keep his feelings hidden. He appeared at her doorstep, eyes filled with determination. His love for Diep had never faded, but believing James could bring her happiness, he once chose to step aside. Now, after all the pain Diep has suffered, he could no longer stay in the shadows. Diep never expected Tung to choose this moment to confess his feelings. Her heart now wavered between two paths. On one side, James, the man who stood by her through her weakest moments. On the other, Tung, the one who quietly protected her from the shadows all these years. Meanwhile, James, the cold yet deeply caring CEO, is buried in a storm of corporate crises, completely unaware that an emotional storm is quietly brewing behind his back. Stay tuned and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss a single episode of this emotional roller coaster. But it didn't stop there. With a heart burning from love and jealousy, Tung began to hatch a dangerous plan. On a drizzling night, he quietly made his way to a tucked-away cafe behind a row of old, worn buildings, where dim yellow lights flickered on a dark wooden table. In the farthest, shadowed corner sat a man waiting, someone who had once been the head of sales at James's company, fired after a scandal involving embezzlement and corruption. Now, he lived in hiding, consumed by revenge. Tung entered, offering no greeting, and pulled out the chair opposite him. His gaze was sharp and cold, not the quiet, thoughtful man he once was, but someone now willing to sacrifice everything to get what he wanted. After a long silence, Tung set his coffee down. His voice was low and firm. "If getting Diep means getting my hands dirty, so be it."
The other man smirked, his eyes gleaming with menace. "I've been waiting for this day. If you want to bring James down, I'll help, just don't come back crying." Tung didn't blink. His decision was made. The love inside him had become a double-edged blade, sharp, relentless, and capable of hurting everyone involved, including himself.
Meanwhile, Diep, the gentle, hard-working girl with deep self-respect, was slowly returning to her daily rhythm. Though her body was still weak, and her steps still a bit unsteady after the long illness, she refused to stay in bed or rely endlessly on the care of others. Each morning, as the sun peeked through the row of areca palms behind her garden, Diep was already up. She carried 2 baskets filled with fresh vegetables, bundles of mustard greens still glistening with dew, deep purple eggplants, and tender young loofah shoots. Step by step, she made her way to the village market. Sweat soaked her shirt, but her eyes remained bright, and her lips gently curved into a smile as she greeted the familiar women and elders she passed. No one could see that behind that serene face was a heart still aching, still wrestling with quiet fears she dared not speak aloud. Diep never complained, never sighed. She didn't want James, who was shouldering the burdens of an entire company, to worry any more about her. She feared becoming a burden. And more than anything, she didn't want their beautiful love to be clouded by pity. Each time she thought of James's eyes, of those quiet nights he sat at her bedside holding her hand in silence, Diep reminded herself, "I have to live well. I have to be strong for him." After the early morning market, when the sun had just risen high enough to dry the last dew from the leaves, Diep made her way to visit James's mother, a woman she deeply respected and felt forever indebted to. In her hands was a bundle of freshly picked vegetables from her garden. Tender morning glory, fragrant Vietnamese coriander, a few purple shallots, and a small bunch of red amaranth, all lovingly grown and tended by her own hands over the past days. Along with the vegetables, Diep carried a small fabric pouch. Inside was a modest amount of savings coins and small bills carefully set aside after many mornings at the market. Though it was little compared to the hospital expenses, it was everything she had. Placing the pouch on the table, Diep spoke softly but firmly. "Ma'am, I know you and James have done so much for me, but I don't want to just receive without giving back. This is a bit of what I've saved. I hope you'll accept it, so I can feel at ease." James's mother paused, then gently smiled, her eyes misty. She took Diep's hand in hers and shook her head. "Silly girl, I've never thought of you as an outsider. You're kind, sincere, that's more than enough. Money means nothing compared to a good heart." Moved by Diep's humility and manners, her heart grew even warmer. Seeing the girl hesitantly standing at the door, she softly invited her to stay for dinner. Diep hesitated at first, but eventually nodded. She rolled up her sleeves and stepped into the kitchen, moving with ease as if she had always belonged there. She cooked, set the table, washed vegetables, and cleaned dishes like it was second nature.
Under the golden kitchen light, James's mother quietly watched her. As Diep diligently scrubbed the bowls, a deep sense of reassurance bloomed in her chest. She thought to herself, if James ends up with this girl, his life will never lack a true home.
As for James, after days stretched tight like a drawn bowstring due to internal company crises, he finally found a brief moment of peace. Thanks to quiet yet relentless efforts, he had managed to track down John, the man who once embezzled funds and caused severe damage to the company years ago. With solid evidence in hand and the support of his personal lawyer, James personally turned John over to the police. But the relief didn't last long. Just 2 days later, alarming news came from a friend in the security sector. John had vanished from custody. Not an escape, he had been extracted cleanly and without a trace, thanks to the intervention of a powerful underground force. John was not the forgiving type. And this time, he wasn't just back for revenge, he wanted to destroy everything James had built. His career, his reputation, and the woman James loved most. "The battle isn't over yet," James whispered to himself, his eyes slowly turning cold and razor sharp. James received a phone call from his mother. Her voice was gentle, but unusually cheerful. "Diep is home, waiting for you to come back for dinner. Don't be late, okay?" Just that one simple sentence was enough to breathe life back into James's exhausted heart. He left the unfinished documents on his desk, pushed aside the pile of unanswered emails, and rushed home. The three of them sat around the dinner table. The dishes were humble red amaranth soup, braised fish, fried eggs, not luxurious, but filled with the sweet flavor of sincerity. James's mother cheerfully picked food for Diep, occasionally turning to remind James to eat properly and not skip meals because of work. James sat there, quietly watching the two most important women in his life. One was his mother, the other the woman he loved with all his heart, and a wave of emotion welled up inside him. Outside, the storm was still looming, enemies still scheming in the shadows. But in this moment, he felt peace. If only time could stop right here, James thought silently. After dinner, James's mother invited Diep into her room for a private conversation. She had recently heard that Diep had once been married and wanted to understand more about her past. Diep didn't hide anything. She shared her life story, how she was orphaned at a young age, and how, at just 16, she was sold to become someone's wife for the price of 2 buffalo. She recounted the 4 years she spent living like a beast of burden in her husband's home, exploited by her mother-in-law, beaten by her alcoholic husband, and finally cast out without mercy when he brought home a mistress. At that time, her life felt like hell. James's mother was silent, her tears falling before she even noticed. She reached out and held Diep's hand tightly, her voice trembling with emotion. A girl who has lived through all of that and still remains gentle, still knows how to love you, deserve happiness. From now on, I will love you as if you were my own daughter. That night, in their small, quiet room, James held Diep tightly in his arms. The pain is behind us now. I'll stay by your side, marry you, and give you the happy life you deserve. But will that happiness truly last? When Tung is secretly plotting to bring James down, and John the traitor from the past has yet to make his final move? Can love overcome hatred and ambition? Will James and Diep's wedding be a beautiful ending, or just the beginning of a new storm? Stay tuned for the next episode to uncover all the shocking twists. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss a single moment.
Xin chào mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều vì đã theo dõi hết video của mình nha. Và mọi người ơi, nếu như mọi người yêu thích kênh của mình cũng như yêu thích những câu chuyện về James và Diệp, cũng như để biết rõ về diễn biến câu chuyện, thì mọi người hãy đăng ký kênh, sau đó bật chuông thông báo để đón xem những phần tiếp theo. Tại vì diễn biến câu chuyện còn khá phức tạp và rất là dài nên mọi người đừng bỏ lỡ nha. Và nếu như mọi người yêu quý mình cũng như là yêu quý những người xung quanh thì hãy chia sẻ video hay và ý nghĩa này đến mọi người để ai cũng có thể xem được video hay và ý nghĩa này nha. Và cuối cùng mình xin chúc mọi người một ngày thật vui vẻ và hạnh phúc. Và cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều vì đã theo dõi video. Hãy tiếp tục theo dõi và ủng hộ kênh của mình nhé. Và bây giờ thì mình xin phép chào tạm biệt và hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở những video sau. Bye bye mọi người. Nhớ ủng hộ kênh của mình nha. Bye bye.